Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, and otherworldly and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow Creepin' It Real Show on Twitter at creepin_it. You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, creepinitrealshow.com. Without further ado, welcome to this week's episode.
Welcome, creepers, to our Creepin' It Real show. I am one of your hosts, Moni, and I would like to introduce our other host, Christy. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. I'm slowly trying to wake up and after all these technical difficulties this morning, wrap my brain around the fact that now I have to talk. So, but I'm doing fine.
Awesome. And Mr. Yardley, how's it going for you over there today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Lovely day here in Atlanta. The sun is finally melting these little bit of snow flurries that we had. And I'm kind of excited to talk some weird news and Charles Manson.
We have a weird job or little side gig here talking about that we're excited to talk about Charles Manson first thing Sunday morning. But we are here in SoCal. I don't know if you guys have been hearing about the fires that we've been having, but it's been a really scary week. And I know people talk about the earthquakes in Southern California, and we actually had a couple of those. And when we have those, you know, I was out in public when the first one hit, some big one hit this week, and we sort of were just like, meh, shrugs, because we're used to that. But the fires are definitely an issue. And I live in Temecula, which is right next to Murrieta, and then a couple miles from the San Diego County line. And we've got a big fire right in North San Diego County, right next to where I live, and then another big fire in Murrieta in the next town over. So our air quality has sucked. It's been kind of a spooky vibe and atmosphere this week. So that's kind of my weird personal news for the week. Oh, and I wanted to give a shout out really quick. One of my staff members, one of my best, newest, and brightest staff members actually came up with a t-shirt that says "Creep It Real." I think I posted it a couple weeks ago on our Facebook page, but I'm officially wearing our Creep It Real t-shirt. It doesn't say "Creep in It" because it wasn't made for us specifically, but it's very comfortable and very soft, and I wish that we all could have one of these t-shirts.
Nice. That's what's up. Sounds lovely.
So I want to get into some weird news, and Christy has something about pickled testicles. I would love to hear about that.
Do either one of you guys ever watch Storage Wars?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of slightly obsessed with that show. I've watched it for years. Barry is my favorite. And I saw this article and I thought it would be perfect with A, my obsession with Storage Wars, and B, the whole premises of our show. But imagine, if you will, going to one of these storage auctions and paying $375 for a storage unit. Hoping it's going to have some sort of hidden treasures. Well, apparently this poor dude, Alan Price, 57 years old, did this and found some interesting items in the storage unit. He found bones that had been carved into flutes. I think it was like a 3,300-year-old clay tablet that had some sort of recipe on it. It was stolen, I think, in 2003 from a museum. And pickled testicles. Many, many jars of pickled testicles. 5 that were filled to the brim. So I'm really curious. I think they're assumed that this is some sort of German witch doctor from, like, he's an old man now. I don't know, but I would say you're not going to get a lot of money for the pickled testicles. So I don't know if he's going to get his money back.
Hey, you never know. If there's anything we've learned through the process of this podcast, it's there's a market for everything. And, I feel like if you go onto eBay and say you've got pickled testicles, somebody would buy that for whatever reasons they may have.
Absolutely. You're totally right about that. There's always that one, somewhere that'll do it. And if there's one person that does it, there's somebody else who's going to probably take offense and like bid on it again. But you're absolutely right. Somebody would buy it. But I mean, I'm just looking at the picture, from the link of those things. And maybe that's the key to him living or something. Like maybe he's not telling the whole story. Maybe he's snacking on these things and he thinks like it'll help him with his longevity.
Yeah, but why then isn't he paying his damn storage fees? So they seize it and auction it off to somebody else. So clearly he either isn't very successful in this market or he's dead. So that didn't work out. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he's just the German witch doctor's gone through some hard times and couldn't pay his bills. I don't know. But the Anaheim Police Department is asking anyone to come forward with any information on who these testicles could be.
I tell you what, Anaheim is essentially my hometown where I grew up, and it's that whole county. It's very conservative, not a lot of crime, like high crime rate. That's where Disneyland is, of course. And I bet you both the housewives that are very prominent, the Real Housewives of Orange County is from that area, and the Anaheim PD. I'm sure there's something for the whole town to be a titter for months to come, because that is going to be definitely, it's an extra story anywhere, but especially in a town like that. It's not something you see every day for sure, an old OC.
Oh, wow. Something they're talking about over their happy hours, I guess.
For sure. So, Yardley, I'm looking at the show notes, and before I clicked on the actual link to see what it meant, you have model in quotes. And I was like, I wonder why he put model in quotes. I wonder if that was the article it had put it in quotes. And when I actually saw the woman in question, which you're going to explain in a minute, I understood why you had put that she's not exactly model material. You want to tell us about this story?
Well, yeah. And, in these days and times, we have these things. Apparently there's a thing, it's like Instagram model. Now, I don't know how that necessarily pans out for everyone, but this young lady from Ottawa, Canada, there is kind of like in the tattoo culture, we've seen people get tattoos in all types of crazy places. And there are actually people who get tattoos, on their eyes. So apparently this young lady got a tattoo on her eye. It got infected, and it got infected so badly that whenever she cries, some of the ink comes out in her tears. So it looks like she's crying purple tears. So she's got this bad, infection that's going on in her eye due to the tattoo. There's definitely a possibility that if these surgeries don't go correctly, that she might end up losing her eyes. Now, the question that I have to pose to both of you is, there's a thing with me about getting a tattoo on the neck. I'm like, yeah, that might come back to haunt you, like, like the neck tattoos. So I always thought that was just, I just say, just get tattooed up. But if you put on a shirt, because our society these days might not always be as accepting if you have tattoos, first impressions. And we know that you shouldn't judge a person based off of tattoos, because we probably all know extremely successful and intelligent people who have them. But we know that society is sometimes based off of perception. Perception is not reality. And her reality is definitely that she might actually lose an eye. But would getting an eye tattoo be something that both of you would keep off of the table? And do you know anyone who is use an opportunity to get some ink? A lot of people get stars. I've seen that in their eyes. So I don't know. Is that just something you think is kind of a little bit too extra?
I just have to tell you right now that this whole conversation is literally I have tears coming out of my eyes. I have when I saw your freaking link, Yardley, I about fell over. I don't know if either one of you have ever seen the episode of Friends where Rachel has an eye infection and she has those drops and they literally have to put her in a headlock to give her the drops, that's me. Like anything that comes near my eyes, I can't watch my husband take his contacts out. I lose. Oh, so hell no. I wouldn't even put a tattoo on my eye. People get their eyebrows, tattooed to fill them. Hell no. There's no way in hell I would do anything in my eyeball ever. I won't even ever wear contacts. That is a huge hell no for me. So I'm out of that.
What about you, man?
I have several thoughts on this. I have had many eye surgeries. I actually am someone who would have been blind in my right eye had I not had several surgeries, actually from birth, to correct some muscle issues. And I actually made it into a medical journal for the LASIK surgery that I had about 5 years ago, I think now, because it was at the time the most extreme LASIK surgery they had done. So first of all, I wouldn't fuck with my eyes, excuse me, in any kind of cosmetic way. Just having been through what I've been through, I wouldn't risk like that. And my mother actually worked in ophthalmology, which is, eye surgeries. And she did this dumb shit thing. I was a teenager and she couldn't even admit to me what she had done. She was saying she was sick and it was allergies until years later when she finally admitted what she had done. But what she did, and a lot of people do it, and I shouldn't say dumb shit because it works out for some people, but she had coming from a background of ophthalmology and seeing the kind of injuries and stupid shit that people do to their eyes. My mother had eyeliner tattoo done. Mm-hmm. And being from that background, so of course, knowing how to take care of her eyes, knowing what the warning signs were for infections, got an infection in both eyes and had to go on antibiotics and had all kinds of issues for weeks. And in the end, the tattoos, they don't even stay. You have to have them redone at some point. It's apparently one of the most painful places, obviously, that you can get a tattoo. And that wasn't even in the eye. So hell no, I wouldn't have done this. And I saw something on this link. She has a line here, she being this model, quote unquote model. And we say that too. I was laughing because you look at this woman and I'm sorry, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but also let's just say that this story is going to make her way more famous on her little Instagram modeling career than her actual modeling ever would have done.
Yeah.
But yeah. But she said something about doing this to make herself feel it more at home in her own body. Young people, even older people, if you're doing this, stop. Just fucking stop. Like, where are we going to end? Are we going to start cutting off limbs to be like, I didn't feel like my right arm belonged, so I cut it off to make myself feel more at home in my own body? Like, stop it. You're born a certain way, and it's fine if you want to, like, put artwork on yourself, beautify, whatever. But in your eye, like, there has to be a boundary somewhere, like you were made, and all the people with all the disabilities that are born that way, and you're going to go stick needles. And by the way, I think her boyfriend did this for her. Like, what an idiot. Like, you didn't even go to a shop, because I think a shop would have been like, why? Well, you want to do what, where?
Well, the deal is sealed. Like, if she loses her eye, he has to stay with her forever.
Yeah, right. She's like, I lost my eye for you.
Oh, totally. But it looks, just looking at the infection and the inflammation that's on the inside of the eye, it's almost like when I'm looking at this picture, I don't even want to be patient. I just want to take some pliers and just grab the corner of that thing and just peel it out of her eye and just be done with it.
I'm about to pass out over here. Holy crap.
Oh my gosh.
This model that's become the most interesting thing about her whole face, though. Maybe she needs to keep it. I don't know. Like, maybe that'll be her new modeling shtick, is like, I'm the purple-eyed model. God, like, you are no Liz Taylor. Like,
it looks like somebody dyed an earthworm purple and wrapped it around the inside of her eye.
Stop it, people. Just, get your piercings, get your tattoos. And that's, you were talking earlier about the perception, and I agree. Like, society shouldn't judge, but people still do. And where I work at the library, we get a lot of people, more and more lately, that not only have the neck tattoos, but have tattoos on their faces, kind of like the Mike Tyson tattoo.
Yeah.
And the minute they walk in, and I'm sorry, like the minute I see someone with tattoos on their face, I automatically am like, I gotta pay more attention to that person. They might be from a gang, or they might be here to cause trouble. And some of them have been the nicest, most well-spoken people ever, but it's just like, I saw a guy yesterday. I was out at this thing with my kids, and he had a tattoo on the back of his leg that said "drunk by noon." And I was like, how do you go? I mean, I guess you can cover a leg tattoo, but it's like, can you imagine going to a job interview with a purple eye? Can you imagine going to a job interview with like face tattoos and wondering why? I think that interview went really well, but did it though? I mean, you know.
I think imagine going to a job interview with no eye, because if this thing doesn't heal, she ain't gonna have an eye. Like, is it worth the gamble?
That might help her to get a job.
She might have a really, there you go.
No, somebody's going to look at her and go, you were that stupid? Yeah, no, I think we're good here.
Yeah, but she'll probably come up with some brave and heroic story out of it, and somebody will probably get sued, because that's the way things work nowadays, right?
Yeah.
She's going to sue her boyfriend?
Yeah.
She probably won't, but
she'll probably sue the maker of the tattoo ink for it giving her an infection, or because she's trying to say also that she did everything possible to take care of it. And it's just like, ugh. So,
well, look.
How do you take care of a tattoo in your eye?
The more we talk about this, the more I have to stare at this picture of this purple earthworm. So I think we probably
please
move on. Because there's nothing that I can do about it. Like, I can stare at it only if I had the pliers and I could pull it out, but I can't do that. So.
I've seen exposed bones, innards coming out, and I'm like, yeah, all right. And then I see that, and I literally come off my chair, and I'm like, no, like, that is the absolute worst thing I've ever seen. Oh God.
But you know what? We'll definitely post this link on our social media accounts as well, because people definitely have to see this, and I'm really curious at what the creepers have to say about this, because I don't think that something. I'm kind of with you two now. I'm not as squeamish, about my eyes like that, to where I'm really uncomfortable, maybe watching people put contacts in or anything like that.
Right.
But in this particular situation, I just know that it's something that has to constantly just aggravate her, because if she says she's a model, so she's definitely self-conscious about certain things, and your eyes are where people automatically look. If you've ever had a sty, like it's and you like talk to people, like that they're just beaming in on that. So I know that this doesn't help, but hopefully everything works out for this young lady, because that would definitely be something that would suck, to have to get the handicap sticker at her age.
Yeah, absolutely. And over a story like that, I do not know. So I suggest we move along, because
thank you.
No more of that. I wanted to talk about horror in pop culture. I think we talked about the Winchester movie, actually, that's coming out. There were some new trailers, and we did a little bit on one of our last podcasts about the Winchester film. But who posted the link for the film again this time? Did somebody have a specific comment they wanted to make about it this time?
Well, I had posted the trailer. I don't really have a specific comment, but I think one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on was watching the trailer. I was curious at what either of you felt just about the tone of the film, because I'm wondering, how do you make a film with this topic uncomfortable and scary? So that's something that I think that I would be really excited to see the film about, but I'm not so sure if they can pull it off.
It looked like, just from this newer trailer, that they're going to try to take an angle of Mrs. Winchester was, I mean, we kind of generally assume at this point from what she did that she was crazy, but it looks like they're going to try to take the story to the historical angle that the male builders were trying to, or the stakeholders were trying to legally take away her rights to her property based off of her mental competency. So I wonder, especially attracting talent like Helen Mirren, if this becomes kind of a feminist, not a feminist story, but kind of a females in that time and age story of her strength in being able to fight off the influence of other men trying to legally battle her out of her own. I mean, for better or worse, she may have been crazy, but she was financing the thing. It was her property, and it looks like from the angle the trailer's taking that they were trying to force her out of her right to her property due to her mental competency. So I feel like that may be what the new and interesting take on it is going to be. I don't know that this is going to be such a scary film, though.
Yeah, so basically the humans are the monsters instead of actual monsters, ghosts per se. Is that
Oh,
Right.
yes, it's going to be a film about the human condition. or
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
So,
Could
Yeah,
be.
and they may paint Mrs. Winchester as sort of not only a victim of her own mind, which everyone I feel like can agree on today, just of her own insanity and thinking that the ghosts were out to get her due to her family's guns actions, but also that she was actually fighting a battle during her lifetime against real humans who were trying to out to get her, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
all right. Well, we'll definitely have to watch it and follow up on this because this is one of the things since we brought this up on more than one show. My curiosity it has definitely been deepened after seeing that trailer.
Yeah, I believe
Oh,
it comes
shit.
out February 2nd, I think it is. Beginning of February at some time. So we don't have too much longer to wait.
So, and then they're
Movie
redoing. Oh, I'm sorry. Halloween and Friday the 13th are getting remade again. Does someone want to explain that?
Yeah, yeah, actually, and I think that these are going to be properties that are going to be coming out. I think Halloween is definitely next year, and Friday the 13th would probably be the following year. I think that there's potential. There wasn't any links to the Friday the 13th except some threads that I saw that were saying that I think one of the people who I think were writing the script were saying that they thought that I think it was Kevin Bacon would be
Oh, boy.
a person that they would be looking into. I think to yeah. Well, oh, and I put Friday the 13th, but I meant Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, gotcha. And I saw that Robert
Ah.
Englund is involved in some capacity.
Yeah.
Is that true as well? What would he be? Is he just going to be like a minor character, kind of making like a cameo appearance, or?
Yeah, there's not a ton of stuff that's on it because what I did was in my research is I was just kind of doing general searches on horror movies, the
Mhm.
most anticipated horror movies of 2018. And I had already heard about the Halloween because they actually had a teaser come out about that. And that, it literally doesn't really show you anything. We know that Jamie Lee Curtis is she's definitely going to be a part of that. So that is going to be exciting. But the Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those properties that I'm like, I don't know if they should mess with it, but it's also something that I probably haven't even seen in like 25 years, like going back to like 84, like during 84 and 85 when, HBO was first coming out and things like that. I remember seeing it a fair share of times back then. So I'm wondering if I rewatch it now, how would I feel about the movie, seeing
Yeah.
it as an adult as opposed to when I was younger. But in addition, with the success of the It movie, I think if you get the right people, behind the wheel, I think that it could definitely be pulled off in a great way. So at least that movie gives me faith that it's doable. But I don't know. It's kind of different content. You don't have, people can always root for kids, and you don't necessarily root for adults when they're in movies like this.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I don't understand really the point of the remakes for either one of these because since these movies have come out, we have so many movies influenced by those movies. I mean, the slashers, the, strangers, predators coming after you. I'm not really that excited about it. I hate to sound like such a downer, but Nightmare on Elm Street could be if they, tried a different, maybe, I don't know, modernize the concept a little bit, could be interesting. But I've never, even as a kid, I never cared about the Friday the 13th or the Halloweens because, oh wait, I said Nightmare on Elm Street. It's actually, hold on, I'm all confuzzled now. Which ones is it? It's Halloween
and Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. I thought we were talking about Nightmare.
I thought we were talking about Nightmare on Elm Street.
In the show notes, I put Friday the 13th, but it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
which is the one
Okay,
that
good.
we're gonna
Good.
It's on there now.
I just
Good.
didn't.
I know I'm not crazy now, but yeah. So
No,
Nightmare
you're-
on Elm Street,
Well,
I could get
that?
some excitement on. Well, yeah, as far as this subject, Halloween. I was never interested in Halloween. I was never interested in Friday the 13th, and they're kind of the same premises, just different stories behind, the actual killer. Yeah, no, I don't dig slasher films, so those I'm not. But Nightmare on Elm Street, yeah, I'd be interested in watching that one.
So I must respectfully take a different path from both of you. I love the original Halloween, and the second one is okay because it picks up right where the first one left off, as if you're like the same night and the story continues. Other than that, F the rest. Nightmare on Elm Street, I really love. So, I saw those when I was fairly young because I was born in the 80s, and Halloween, and I've talked about this again and again on our podcast, but that proximity thing, I mean, you have to live in your neighborhood, and Halloween is the holiday is going to come, whether you celebrate it or not. The kids are going to be in their costumes and walking around. And how do you know that someone who is lumbering around is not someone who might actually have a knife and come in and kill you? And if they're coming in and killing you and it's Halloween night and you're hearing screams, how do we know that those screams aren't just silly screams from the haunted house at your neighbor's place? Like, I just really like that concept that kind of Laurie is an every girl. She, what's her face? Jamie Lee Curtis was no raving beauty. And that feeling, I mean, obviously they take it over the top with him being a psycho killer, and he can't be killed, and he keeps coming back, and that's why the sequels aren't that great.
And he never runs. It's like,
yeah,
really?
You can just like fast walk. He's like a zombie, just like fast walk away from him and be fine.
And then you take the camera off of him, and all of a sudden he's right behind you. It's like, how are you running? And he's walking, and then all of a sudden he's right behind you, or in front of you, or on this. I'm like, what? Okay. That was all my problem.
Visceral brutality, though, in the first film of what he does, like when that kid finishes having sex with the girl and then goes downstairs for a snack, and Mike Myers is down there, and he stabs through the kid, and he's pinned up against the pantry behind him, or when the girl's in the car and he just keeps stabbing her, and it's almost a little bit like sexual. It's just really raw in that film, and it's really scary and intimate, and very much like if a killer came to your street and just started picking people off on Halloween night, people would just be like, oh, that's a really cool Halloween. Like, we talked about it at Halloween time, that the cops got called because somebody had someone hanging from a tree, or had that dummy that was coming out of the garage door. You don't know if those things are real or fake. And you might not know till the next day that, hey, that person never went to school or work the next day, and they actually are dead. So I love that movie, and that concept of kind of a stranger stalking you and lurking and following you, and you keep thinking you see someone. I mean, creepy. And then Nightmare on Elm Street, like, you got to sleep sometime. I mean, that one's
good. Yeah.
Infeasible. Yeah. But you got to sleep sometime. And so that whole concept of just like trying to stay awake and then not knowing if you're awake or asleep, like, it's kind of fun that the way that they play with that.
I remember as a kid singing that song all the time and trying to scare the crap out of people.
Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Do you guys have any Elm Street in your area? Just out of curiosity, do you, Atlanta, like Georgia, anywhere, do you have Elm Streets? Have you ever driven by an actual Elm Street?
We actually do have an Elm Street in historic Roswell. I would say it probably has homes on it, like historic homes, as well as some of them have now been converted to businesses. So have to go take a little drive over there and see what it looks like.
We have a beautiful Elm Street in Orange County, where I grew up, Brea, California. And every time I drive past it, I kind of smirk. Like, these are the prettiest houses that are probably worth $700,000 or $800,000, and it's on Elm Street. And I'm just like, I wonder if every time you have a nightmare, you're just like, it's because I live on Elm Street, or if you just like get over that and be like, that's so stupid. But as far as the remakes, I don't know. Obviously, Rob Zombie did Halloween. And did you guys see the Rob Zombie remakes of Halloween?
No.
Negative.
Oh man, you didn't miss anything. He cannot do anything subtly. It's like he remade the film beat for beat, yet with more relentless, for the sake of itself violence. And to me, I don't know how you guys feel about just violence in films. Like, I don't shy away from it. It's not like I'm like, oh no, it's too graphic. It's just, yep, sure is getting stabbed, sure is making a big noise, like, but that doesn't make it scary per se. So it's like he had the exact same kill lined up, and you're like, this is exactly the moment that someone's going to get killed, except there was like more torture kind of involved in the kill, and it just didn't do it for me. Do you guys like that whole like uber violence? Does that make it scarier for you at all?
No.
Yeah, I think for me, if there's a build-up, I think suspense does it for me more than hack and slash, because even the Friday the 13th movies, I mean, for me, hack and slash just means that this is probably a horror movie that's just really not taking itself that seriously. And, you know, it's just, you just go in there to see some gore and then you get up out of there. But suspense works a lot better because you kind of feel like, or at least for me, that I am taking part in the journey with whoever this character is. And when I'm more on edge for a build-up, I think that makes the experience a lot more enriching, at least for me personally, because hack and slash, you can get that anywhere. And plus, I play a lot of hack and slash video games. So, yeah, I don't need to translate that to, to actually paying for a movie to watch.
I agree.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I haven't seen it in a few years, but it's like, it's more like if you played, I feel like if you had played both movies side by side, the original Halloween and then Rob Zombie's remake, you would get the same chase. And so that thrill of the chase is gone because you're like, no, this is exactly what I've seen before, except then you're just like, okay, now we're just killing. Like, alrighty, like, we get it. He's certainly a pulverized body. And
Are you slapping yourself? Don't slap yourself.
I am. I'm like hitting my fists together, but sorry about that.
I'm just kidding. It sounds funny.
Well, I was going to say, because I don't mind gore, like, in a fun slasher film, kind of, like, it doesn't take itself so seriously. You get, like, the blood splatter or something, and, like, from a popcorn movie perspective, it's like, oh, and it's, like, kind of cool, But he didn't even do it in a cool way. It's just sort of brutal and ugly and meh. Meh is my take on his remake.
That's official review. Huh?
Yeah, and I think that there's a what is it? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's another one of those coming out, but I think it's going direct to video.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so maybe that's something that we could check out.
Yeah, maybe we should. And, so I wanted to bring up, though, a good slasher film. I know that, Yardley, is it you that doesn't love slashers per se, though?
Well, no, I mean, it's fine. I'm just saying that whenever I see slasher films, to me, just the fun is in the slashing. I don't think that those movies take themselves that seriously when there's just over the top. You know what I mean? So yeah. Whatever. I don't mind it,
Gotcha. So part of the news for the week, and also segueing into our main topic of Charles Manson, The Strangers, the movie that came out in 2008 starring Liv Tyler, is I think, a really good slasher film. And Christy, you've seen it, right?
Yeah, I have to say, I would not classify this movie as a slasher film. It's very suspenseful. Suspenseful. The entire movie is building up to them. They are alive most of the movie. And so it's like, for me, yeah, at the end, people die, but that wasn't like just all the movie was about. There was a lot of like cat and mouse and creepiness, and they were people that were alive, but it was almost like a paranormal story. Just basically, though, just psychotic killers, messing with their prey, I guess you could say. So it was a solid-ish movie. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites. I thought it was solid, and the ending scared the shit out of me. I was not expecting that. So it was kind of and then it was just over. And you're like, holy crap.
So for those who don't know, or for those who haven't seen it, since obviously it's a 10-year-old film almost by now, it is heavily inspired. It says it's based on true events, which it doesn't actually, that made everybody think like, what actually happened? There are several true events that Brian Bertino, the writer and director, was inspired by, but mainly he was inspired by the reading of the book Helter Skelter and the Charles Manson murders, and also an event that happened in his childhood where he and his sister were home alone overnight. and some strangers knocked on the door and asked if someone who didn't live there was home, and they were told, that person doesn't live here, and they didn't come back. But it turned out that same group had been going down the row of homes. He lived in the middle of nowhere, essentially, and were breaking into homes where they weren't finding anybody inside of the house. So, and as far as the Charles Manson inspiration, it was because, and this is the case in most murders, life isn't like the movies where someone comes to kill you and, while they have you tied up, they say, I'm doing this because of this reason and that reason right before they kill you. It's usually when it's going to be something as random as the Tate and LaBianca murders were to the victims. And honestly, they were with the exception of someone that Manson didn't like having once lived in that house, they were pretty random to the killers as well. And that's the inspiration for The Strangers, is that, at some point Liv Tyler's character is tied up about to get stabbed to death, spoiler alert. And she says, why are you doing this to us? And one of the masked killers just says, because you were home. And that's essentially, when it boils down to it, what happened with the Manson murders. They had their motive as far as what they were trying to achieve through killing people in general, but the victims they picked were just fairly random, that just happened to be on the property that they chose the night of the 2 nights over the duration of those murders.
Well, the property that they were on was actually owned by one of the guys that Manson felt like screwed him over.
Yeah, Terry Melcher.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Manson knew that they lived on the property. I think he thought
did.
Maybe
so that was
he did know. Okay.
To back up a little bit, Manson had actually gone and visited, kind of scoped out the whole thing a few days before the murders actually occurred. And also seen from a security standpoint that you could just sort of walk onto the property. And he saw a very pregnant Sharon Tate at the pool with, I think, like a photographer was taking photos of her. And the photographer actually shooed he and Tex Watson, who ended up doing pretty much most of the killing, off of the property because they were demanding to see Terry Melcher. And they told him, like, Terry Melcher doesn't live here anymore. Like, this is Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate's property and you need to leave. And that really kind of served in pissing Manson off more. But in his twisted head, it was still, this property and these people represent the things that I will never attain. And therefore I'm going to come back and still fuck these people up. So indeed they did. So just real quick, to get back to The Strangers and the news on that, there is a sequel to the Strangers film, and it's called The Strangers Pray at Night. And Yardley was mentioning he's not a big, we were talking before we started, not a big Liv Tyler film, but she's not slated to appear in the sequel. But who is in the sequel is what's her name? Oh man,
Christina
Hendricks.
Yeah. Where's she been?
And she's not one of the masked killers. So you get to see Christina Hendricks in her pretty face and her pretty body running around scared from the killers. So that might be kind of fun.
Total opposite of Liv Tyler. I mean, I think Liv is cute and she's kind of like tall, lanky, and thin. And then you've got Christina Hendricks is like bombshell with red head and like very curvy. So yeah, they went a whole opposite direction on this casting.
Yeah. Did you guys get a chance to watch the trailer, though?
I did not. I read about it, and I read about everybody, but I didn't watch the trailer.
Sorry, not to put anyone on the spot. It's so run-of-the-mill. I'm a little bit like, the first movie was so good, and this one just looks like, yep, we're sure going to run around with people in masks killing people. Like, that was just kind of my take on the whole thing. But because I really am a big fan of the first film, and I've kind of been waiting. I've kind of been looking at news because every couple years they're like, this film's going to come out, and I'm like, yay, they're finally doing it. And they've kind of lost their director. It's one of those things where there's been a lot of issues in the business side of this movie, and I'm not holding out too much hope, and that's really disappointing after 10 years of waiting. So
well, the positive is that it's actually going to theaters, so at least it's somewhat got good backing enough that they think it could go to the movie theater. That doesn't mean it's going to be a hit or anything, but at least they're thinking, wow, we can actually release this in theaters. So that ought to be interesting to see how it turns out.
We've got Christina Hendricks, so that's very good.
Yeah, but she hadn't been around in years, so I don't know if
at the very least, we've got Christina Hendricks eye candy though, running around scared.
That's true.
and we have, I think we have the original actors playing the killers, which obviously they're wearing masks and not talking much, but they had a really good scary presence, I think, in the first film. So that might help, that kind of lumbering, like, really massive threat in the background.
Is it supposed to be the same killers or just different ones? Okay.
Because they got away, spoiler alert, in the first film, they just sort of drove off the first time. And so, yeah, it's the same killers. And they play, in the trailer, they play, I Think We're Alone Now, the Tiffany version.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's basically some young woman is trying to get her car to start, trying to get away from these masked people that are chasing her, and can't get the car to start. And then the creepy old truck that one of the killers had driven in the first film pulls up next to her and cranks up I Think We're Alone Now. Doesn't seem to be anyone around. So whether the movie's good or not, it may change the way you see that innocent, cute little song.
Yeah.
We will have to see. But so I wanted to hear, we watched The Wolves at the Door, which is supposed to be, so I just wanted to give you, this is a terrible film, and I'm just going to say that up front. And apparently every film that I pick for us to watch turns out to be terrible. Actually, Hell House LLC was okay.
Yeah, it was good.
I just want to harken back to a time when I made a good decision for us. Wolves at the Door was recommended by the podcast, oh my God, Jessica Chobot. Oh my God.
Really? They recommended that?
Okay, so Andrew Bowser, her sidekick, he's afraid of everything. I'm sorry. Like, he's really seems like a really sweet dude. Everything scares him. And he was like, I just got done watching this film called Wolves at the Door. And apparently it's supposed to be minute by minute, like remaking of how the murder occurred. So it's supposed to kind of be like a real-time account. But when I was watching it, just from having done as much research as possible for today's podcast on the Manson murders, it didn't really, to me, seem accurate at all as to how the murders took place.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. And, Andrew, though, he was just like, it really messed me up. I'm like really freaked out now. And so I was like, I'm intrigued. And all the helter-skelter and all the rehashing, all the things that we've seen and heard about Charles Manson, I thought at least it was something different, a different angle on this whole thing. But I want to hear what Yardley has to say, even if it's all hatred, because he hasn't gotten to talk much today. And we got to hear that smooth voice after missing him.
Well, no, I mean, I checked out the movie and I totally agree. Just, it really wasn't that good. But one of the things that I think that it suffered from is it wasn't long enough. I think that they should have probably made it another maybe 20 or 30 minutes longer and kind of played around with it with a little bit better interpretation that they were getting from, the source of these murders. I mean, I don't think that there's really been too many movies made about the Manson murders. Am I correct? I don't think that there are many out there on it. I don't think that it's been touched on. And I know that we were talking about Tarantino's film. Wasn't that a couple of weeks ago? Wasn't it Tarantino that was doing a version or something of the Manson
like
murders?
A new...
Yeah, or something.
I don't know if you mean the documentary was the one that I wanted to see. That's what I really was trying to get access to. And guys, I tried everything.
I did too.
The Rob Zombie did a documentary on Reel's channel, and I posted this on our Facebook page. That was Manson's final words, because Manson started randomly calling Rob Zombie from the penitentiary that he was last in the months before he passed away. And just the way that they advertised, without having seen this stupid thing, they made it look like there was some evidence that Manson may have been even less involved in any of the murders than he had been made to look like. I doubt that that's true, but I just kind of wanted to see it as a new take on this old story that's been rehashed so many times. And I did want to ask, this is a really provocative question. I don't want to piss off listeners. I don't want to piss you guys off, but I'm playing devil's advocate. Knowing the background of these murders, this is a question that I wanted to get to today. And Charles Manson, he did shoot a known drug dealer, but the man did not die. Other than that, he did cut someone's ear off, right? But he never physically killed anyone himself, yet went to prison for the rest of his life for manslaughter of 8 people. And I want to ask you guys now, being out of the 60s, being out of the sensationalizing, he did everything he could to make himself more famous as far as carving swastikas and all the rumors and the, putting words up in blood on the wall, which he didn't even physically do as well. Do you guys think, so say we were trying the murders today, do you think that he deserved as much fame, notoriety, and hate as he got for being a murderer?
Yeah, you know what? I think that he probably would have gotten less time if he was in this day and age, because just like you were saying, I mean, it almost seems like with his sentencing, and Christy had brought up this subject, I think in one of our earlier podcasts, we were talking about how much of the blame should you get if someone under your tutelage did something wrong? Should you get kind of the same sentence, or should you get charged with murder? I think we talked about this in episode 1 or 2 or something like that. But I really think in this day and age, he probably would have gotten less time. I think that it's one of those slippery slopes. The young lady who I think was text messaging her boyfriend, he committed suicide. This is something that happened earlier in the year or something. So these are some slippery slope things, but I definitely think that he probably could have gotten a defense mounted that would not have had him in jail for natural life.
Well, I would say that some people could do that. Some people, I don't think he could, because he's stark raving crazy.
Right.
He'd been in and out of prison for 20 years before
Yes.
he came to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
And so when he was released from prison in Indiana, he did not want to be released. He was like, no, I can't go out there. And then decided he's going to do a music career and went to Hollywood and immediately started, with his cult and the brainwashing and the drugs. And then if you see, I watch a lot of crime movies or shows, all kinds of different ones. They have so many different ones now. Used to be a lot of Forensic Files, but now they've all, evolved into so many different ones. But you see a woman who pays a man to kill her husband go to prison for life. So I can't imagine that would be any different for him than, killing 5 people on his command. I would say he would be met with just the same, he would have life. Absolutely. I don't see, in my opinion, I just don't see that it would have changed. I mean, he had plenty of opportunities to go up for parole and was turned away every time. So I think he did. I could be wrong, but I thought that he had been up for parole a few times and that they were like, no, that's not going to happen. But he was never quiet about he was guilty. He admitted it. He bragged about it. He preached about it. And I can't imagine somebody being like, well, maybe he didn't actually kill them. So I would say he would have been, my opinion is he would have had the same sentence.
I'm just curious because he wasn't physically there. And there's a lot of debate as to whether he even said, go kill people. He said, go mess them up and make it look really witchy or something like that. He definitely made it clear that it was supposed to be about the money. He physically was there, I think, the second time they went back. But at any rate, I was just curious, we, all 3 of us, are a little bit young for the generation that actually lived through, because, they talk about a lot of the culture surrounding the murders being that all of that paranoia in the 60s and how what he tried to do with race relations and things that kind of bled into that and made him so hated and made his name synonymous with evil. But I know, when I think of the name Charles Manson, I definitely think crazy dude. And I definitely think really a shame as to what happened to those victims and how badly their deaths, they weren't just killed, they were just torn apart. But that being said, do I think of him as synonymous with the actual devil or pure evil? I don't know. I just feel like that's just a crazy person who was charismatic and a bunch of dumb people followed him and it led to bad decisions being made. What do you guys think?
Instead of drinking Kool-Aid and riding on the tail of a comet, they killed people is basically, just like any cult, you can either they usually end up killing themselves or getting killed, like Waco. But these people actually instead, killed others. Just, I think their theory was to create anarchy and chaos so that they could take over the world, which, yeah, I don't know what the hell they're smoking, but give me some of that, please, because you're not going to get that with just a couple of murders. Sorry.
Yeah, you know what, Charles Manson, for me, though, in general, he's always been that guy that's kind of been in the peripheral, like where I've known about the guy, I've known about his exploits, but years will go by and I have to be reminded that he's still alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he's one of those dudes. He's going to live on, for a long time. Just, and he's going to be something that's going to be in public consciousness. But he just never was a guy that, he just never really stuck with me. You know what I'm saying? I knew that everything that went down, it was it was bad. But I don't know, for some reason, even the internet hasn't been kind with this guy being remembered.
He definitely still has a cult following, but it's not. I mean, it's not huge. I think they said he used to get like 4 letters a day. So people wanting to be, in his group, and he actually left his money to somebody who wrote him letters. They wrote him like 50 letters, and he finally responded, and they started talking, and at the end of the day, he ended up leaving his name and like some of his music rights, because he actually owns music rights to some music, which was, nice, good music from back then, that this guy now owns. So I thought that was an interesting twist for him. He didn't leave it to his little family. He left it to a stranger.
I think that there's a couple of people in an article that I was reading that was saying that there are a couple of people who have a will from different times. There was one that was written, I think, in 2017. There was another one that I think was written in 2004 to somebody that was in his family. But then there were also people who were claiming to be his kids that DNA proved were not. So there's going to be some people kind of vying for that. But I think it would be interesting to get some of the things that he might have documented while he was in prison, to kind of be released into the public domain, to kind of, read his thoughts, and maybe through some of his writings, it can kind of help people get a look into the head of someone who might potentially think like him.
And I watched it's available on Amazon Prime, Manson 40 Years Later, and it was an interesting documentary. It has a young lady who was actually at the scene of the murders, but she stayed in the car essentially during that time, and she was never really punished, and that actually haunts her more, as she feels like she deserves to have been in more trouble than she ever got into for her role in that, just having been there. And I just want to point out again that yes, he picked very easily influenced young at-risk people, and yes, he studied ways to mind control them. But around the time just before the murders, when it became clear that he was getting more violent and militant and this thing was escalating, a lot of the kids started planning ways to escape, and I know they feared for their lives, but at the end of the day, he didn't actually hold a gun to anyone's head and say, go in there and I'm going to hold this gun on you the whole time while you commit a murder. And this young lady, she was driven to the crime scene not knowing what was going to happen when they got there. And she stayed in the car, and she thought about going to get help, but she was afraid that they would kill the people that she ran to whoever's house. And she was afraid, of course, that they'd kill her. She had a daughter back at the ranch. It was really complicated for her. But at any rate, people made their own decisions. And I'm not saying feel sorry for Manson. I'm not saying he wasn't a horrible guy. I'm just saying that we still all make our own decisions. And Tex Watson, his right-hand person, really went to town with these murders and actually forgot initially to get money, which is what the family really needed, was money, and forgot to make the scene look quote unquote witchy enough to start this race war they were trying to start, because he got so into the killings. And the woman who actually, I think it was Susan something, who killed Sharon Tate, she killed Sharon Tate because Sharon was begging for the life of her 8.5-month gestated baby, she actually was like, I had no sympathy for the bitch. I just, I got tired of hearing her beg, so I stabbed her, and then I got her blood all over me, and it felt good, so I just kept stabbing her. I mean, this was not Manson telling them, like, you must stab these people. So let's just try, and these same people, some of them.
You got to argue with the fact that people that kill people for money like to kill. That's why they do it as a job.
Yeah.
So, but they still go after the people that ordered the kill. So like I said, like, what if this dude's tired of his wife, but he doesn't want to get a divorce because he doesn't want her to take his money, and she pays a dude 10 grand to go kill, or he pays a dude 10 grand to go kill his wife. They both go to jail. They both go to prison. He told them in basically terms that they understood to go kill these people, and they did. So he absolutely, to me, was 100% guilty of these murders. These people would still be alive if he, A, didn't show them the house, and B, told them to go do that. And so I 100% don't feel one lick of ounce of doubt or, think, well, it's not, well, they are who they are. Yeah, they behaved and did that under his command. So I personally think there's no reason not to hold him accountable just because he wasn't there.
Gotcha. Yeah,
that's just my opinion.
No, totally. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. Is it's just a provocative question this far out from the 60s and the time when everybody would have just shut down and been like, nope, evil, the worst person ever. Like, he's dead now. What do we make of the whole thing? So, Yarly, did you have any kind of final thoughts on him as a cult leader and his culpability?
You know what? Not really. I definitely am feeling what Christy was just saying. I'm just, for me, I would just really be curious to see what the counts would be on a case like that. But he's a guy who's going to definitely live in infamy, and I'm not going to miss him.
Yeah, and then real briefly regarding Wolves at the Door, did y'all know that was Katie Cassidy, David Cassidy's daughter, was the one who played Sharon Tate in the film?
Yeah.
Oh, she can't act at all, even though she's in Arrow on the CW. And she doesn't look like Sharon Tate. They didn't even try to do her makap or her hair or anything. She looks like Sharon Tate. She just like Katie Cassidy.
What about the beginning of the movie, y'all? With Jane Kaczmarek, the one who played, you remember that show Malcolm in the Middle? She played the mom in that.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of pleasant.
I feel bad for those people. That they actually did a good job, I thought, in that movie, like in a cheesy, cheap way, like building the suspense. And then I was like, this movie could turn out okay. And then the rest of it, no.
Yeah, how does it go downhill like that? Because you were saying before we watched it that it wasn't that good, and then when I saw the very beginning, I was like, I wonder if I'm gonna feel a different type of way. But literally, it's all downhill after the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Well, here's what's shocking to me is John Leonetti directed this movie. I mean, he's the one who directed The Conjuring, Annabelle. I mean, those are in their own right pretty solid movies. Yeah. Insidious, Mortal Kombat. I mean, the guy's a solid director. Yeah. I don't know what the hell he was on that he thought that this was any way. First of all, I felt insulted watching this movie because if you want to make a movie that is influenced by Manson's story, go to town. But to actually use the characters, the victims' names, the victims' backgrounds, and then completely change the events, they didn't die that way. That isn't how they died.
Sledgehammer? There wasn't even a sledgehammer.
No, he got shot in the face. I mean, what in the hell? That poor kid was at the wrong place at the wrong time. He wasn't even in their little group, and he got shot in the face. And then the Folgers girl and her boyfriend got killed in the yard together. And then they made the hairdresser guy, like her love interest, which she was married to Polanski, who was off in Europe, finishing up a movie. Yeah. And she had actually been engaged to this guy before Polanski. So what the hell was he doing over there? I question.
He was there.
Right.
So the night of the real, he was there, and they were actually in her bedroom when the Manson family came into the house, like in real life. She was
wearing a nightie.
Yeah, she was basically, because it was super hot. She was 8.5 months pregnant in August in LA. Like, it was super, super hot. They were in the same bedroom together.
Yeah, and her husband's in Europe.
The physical styling, too, that everybody in the movie looked like they were from a different era from one another.
Yeah, the 60s. It was like all like different, almost like a 50s cop car. And I was like,
yeah.
What? I was really confused.
And that other chick, I don't even know who she was supposed to be playing, but she looked like she was from the 50s, but then like Katie Cassidy looked like she was walking around today. Like
a hipster. Really yeah, she was like just a hipster hanging around.
Yeah.
And then and the thing is the real story is scarier than what they did. Like, why didn't you just stick to and give a homage to the story instead of taking the characters, actual victims that are dead, and making your own fucked up version of it that isn't even as scary as the actual real story?
Don't lose hope, though. Don't ever lose hope as they're like coming to kill you. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
and then it was like they, Sharon and the hairdresser were tied together.
Yes, they were.
And none of that. I don't get it. No, I don't understand.
Not that you ever want to watch a pregnant person get killed, but also that was one of the scariest and most disturbing parts of the whole thing. And I think that's why the murder endures so much as a sensationalized thing to this day, was that they did kill a beautiful, famous, extremely pregnant person. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, they pull their punch. It just ends. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, they're not going to show or even like allude to they killed Sharon. They just drag her out and that's it. And my husband's like, nope, they're not going to kill Sharon. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Like,
yeah.
This is like a movie about people getting killed and they're not even going to kill the real people. Like, what's going on?
And then the guy, the hairdresser that was laying on the couch, I about died. When they started stabbing him, you could hear the spring of the knife. It was like,
and nobody in the house was like, you could hear the spring of the knife. Yes.
It was like a fake knife, and they didn't even try to cover that up, Like, really?
And then
You're
the girls
not
were
even
like,
try?
what's going on? Like, oh my God. Like, can't even.
So many bad decisions made on the character's part, and the director's part, the story's part. I mean, I in no way thought in any way it went down that way. I think the killers, like, bum rushed them, didn't give them a chance to have suspense or run or hide or anything.
Especially you have a young male, like you have an opportunity to have him be a good fight scene or some kind of suspense, trying to, if you're going to change the events anyway, of like trying to protect the women or whatever. And instead you just like kill him while he's sleeping like a little punk. Like, I don't know. It's
I just didn't understand the point of this movie. I mean, I think a lot of people went into it.
Accent? The other young man that was in the film, what kind of accent was that he had? Did anybody figure that out?
It's supposed to be, I think, Polish or something.
What the hell?
I don't know. Yeah, it was.
Oh, and then he was dressed like he was going to be in the pioneer times. I don't know what was. He had that vest on and stuff. Like.
Mm-hmm.
that Montana 1865.
Like, he rides in on a horse. Yeah.
Yes.
That 1865 look is all that.
I was a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that Katie Cassidy in real life was pregnant when they were filming that, and that was her real belly. So I was a little relieved that they didn't show her getting murdered, since I knew that she was pregnant when they were filming that. I was just sort of like, ugh. That was like really the only thing that was even remotely uncomfortable or scary about that film. But
very disappointed.
The suspense in it, especially in the opening scene, like Yardley was saying, that was actually a little bit suspenseful and a little bit scary. They did shoot it a lot like The Strangers, to the point where my husband, who's like our big film guy, was actually looking up to see if anybody involved in The Strangers film had helped on this one. And there was a lot of potential in that. So to harken back and tie it all together, go watch The Strangers from 2008 if you can get access to it somehow. That's one to watch. Think about seeing the sequel when it comes out all the way in March, and skip Wolves at the Door because it sucks.
Yes.
And draw your own conclusions about if Charles Manson was evil or not. But I think we are pretty much at the end. Do you guys have any final thoughts on our topics for today?
I don't think so. Let's talk more about the eyes. I'm just kidding. No, that's not.
Ugh, no, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything either, but I definitely look forward to posting on our Facebook page, what movie that we're going to review next week. And also, this is something that we probably might want to discuss, and we'll post it on the pages at what the holiday schedule is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
That'll work.
Sounds good. So this one should be called Purple Eyes and Crazy Guys, I think.
Yeah, I totally co-sign that one.
There you go. Good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening this week. Creepers, can we find out where we can follow both of y'all? Yardley, where can we find you?
You can follow me across all platforms at militant_marker.
Making it easy. And Miss Christy?
I am on Twitter at creepin_it. I am Creepin' Christy on Instagram and the Creepin' It Real Show on Instagram. And then we also have a Facebook page, the Creepin' It Real Show.
Awesome. And I am Moni Bear on Instagram and Rebel Moni, MONY, on Twitter. And we hope to see you guys following us there. In the meantime, creep it real, y'all.
See ya.
When the hand is extended to you, just be sure it's not the hand that the hunter looking for. Easy prey in the valley on the pole. The hunter is always the door. It's the plan. Everybody's holding his hand. Take everything you have. Every night you lay your head, you'll get into your dreams.